Hey everybody, I'm Tim Hockett. Today we're going to talk about republic or democracy. It's kind of fun. As America is sharply divided, the sides are hurting each other and they're hurting the very nation that they claim to love. And as I've mentioned before, my initial solution to this harmful division is finding our way back to simple values. The ones that are the most indisputable, like decency and respect, like setting a good example, like trustworthiness or caring or fairness or being responsible, or even loving each other. But what divides America begins with the tension built in to the structure of our national identity. Am I saying that tension was built in when the nation was founded? Yes. Oh, yes. It was even built into the U.S. Constitution. Let me explain. The story is told of Benjamin Franklin exiting the Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia and being asked what sort of government the delegates had created. And Franklin famously said, well, a republic, if you can keep it. We learned two things here. First, we learned that America was established as a republic. That is, a group of colonies became a group of quasi-sovereign states. That means as if they were sovereign state, group of states, but they also joined together in a federation. The hope was that they would retain their individual localized sovereignty and freedoms, but also they would enjoy the benefits of their combined strength. But secondly, we seem to get a warning from Franklin when he said, well, if you can keep it. He knew already from the sparks that were flying inside the Constitutional Convention that this structure might not hold, it might not withstand the many differences between the states. But please remember, no one wanted a king to rule over them at all. They knew they must stand together to withstand the many foreign forces that did not want to see these new United States of America to succeed. So drum roll, please. The founders embraced democracy as the decision-making process for this new republic. The people would be empowered to rule themselves. Accordingly, those in charge of the government would get their power from the people. From the onset of the nation, people voted to empower from among their neighbors representatives. And the hope and trust of the voters was that their representatives would go to assemble and reflect the will of their constituents back at home when making decisions about the nation. That's called representative democracy. Okay. The founders were so determined not to have another autocracy or dictatorship, which they refer to as tyranny, that they built into our system a number of checks and balances. And you all have studied this, I know. But in a bicameral Congress, the Senate was comprised to balance the rights of the territories called states. And the House of Representatives was designed to carry the input of the general population. You'll recall the president is elected through the national election, which determines the makeup of the electoral college. That's another whole issue. But that president can be impeached by Congress. So the president is answerable to the Congress. You'll recall that the president has the power to appoint the Supreme Court justices. Congress can adopt legislation or push for constitutional amendments if it feels that the Supreme Court makes bad decisions. And at least 2 times they did that. So the founders seem to have tried very hard to accommodate both the rights of the individual states, South Carolina, Virginia, Georgia, these early states, but also the rights of individual people through democracy, being able to vote. And as a blow to anything that looks like totalitarianism or dictatorship, all members of the offices of the U.S. government swear not to a king or to a person. They don't take a loyalty oath to a person, but they swear to protect the U.S. Constitution. The combined strength of the United States of America was able to fend off early foreign challenges, and there were early foreign challenges. But you know what? The biggest challenge came from within, and it was directly precipitated by the structure of our nation. Some of the parts of the nation, mostly southern states, did not like being told that their state decisions were being called into question by the federal government. They didn't like that. Those states said it was their choice whether to allow people to own slaves, not the federal government's choice. And so war ensued, the Civil War, as states said we were not going to be part of America anymore. It's estimated that more people died because of the Civil War than all other American wars combined. And that should be a sobering thought. To this day, our structure as a republic presents us with huge stresses. And that stress undergirds the widespread and sometimes very deep division in America today. States differ on how to deal with guns, how to deal with abortion, or the rights of the LGBTQ community, or the rights of educators, or even whether to ban certain books from schools or libraries. I'll state my opinion here. I don't think the Republic has been very successful if you count the deaths and division that has resulted. That said, what about democracy? Well, as you would expect, democracy hasn't fared very well either. Again, there were flaws from the beginning. Yes, they were built into the system. The earliest voters in America were white, male landowners. I know that seems inconceivable, but it's true. It took time to enact voting rights for non-owners of land, and for citizens of color, and for women. As an aside, let me just mention that the U.S. is coming up on its 250th birthday. The 19th Amendment of the Constitution giving women the right to vote was finally ratified in 1920, roughly 100 years ago. That means that something that we just take for granted, that women can vote, did not exist for well over half of our American history. Now, despite various amendments to the Constitution to protect democracy and the voting, states still found ways to limit the impact of certain populations by making it harder for them to vote. States used literacy tests. They used poll taxes where you had to pay to vote. They learned how to gerrymander, that is to create districts where they could almost foresee the outcome of that district's voting, in addition to all kinds of voter intimidation. The assault continues with attacks on voting systems and election officials. When a side loses, most notably the widespread condemnation of voting systems and election officials in the most recent presidential election when Donald Trump lost. But you know, rest assured, there's been a long history, ugly history of attacks on voting systems. And I recall in the year 2000, when Bush and Gore were only 583 votes separating them in Florida, and outside where they were counting, where election officials were counting, outside there were mobs of people, just huge protesters. You thought it was going to turn into another January 6th. I mean, it was really something. That's in the year 2000. So just like the structure of a republic has led to many difficult strains on America, so too keeping a system of voting strong and free from attack has also stressed us. My hope is that you, understanding this tension, will use that knowledge to move towards solutions. Most of us love our states, but most of us also love being Americans too. Knowing that the tension is built into our structure as a nation might just help us envision ways to heal. I'm going to continue this discussion as I address the dynamic of urban versus rural in America, and I hope you'll stick with me. Meanwhile, think this over. What solutions could be proposed to help bring us together? Thanks for watching. I'm Tim Hockett. Hey, before you go, I want you to know that I'm just trying to do my part to help us overcome crippling division in America. You can really help by subscribing, by watching these videos, and by sharing them with others. Hope you have a great day.